I'm 75 now, and I can't remember anybody except the Queen being there.
A palace insider has just revealed a dramatic standoff that sent shockwaves through the royal household just moments before a major diplomatic reception. As Catherine, Princess of Wales, was putting the finishing touches on her attire, donning Princess Diana's iconic Spencer Sapphire Tiara, the unexpected happened. Queen Camilla reportedly made a sudden appearance in Catherine's private dressing room, with a shocking demand hand over the tiara immediately for her own use that evening. However, what truly stunned onlookers wasn't just the request itself, but Camilla's increasingly aggressive demeanor when Catherine refused to back down. With tension in the room reaching a boiling point, Prince William suddenly intervened. Eyewitnesses claim he immediately stepped in front of his wife with a rare, fierce protective streak. Some sources even allege that William issued a defiant ultimatum he would never allow his family's painful history to repeat itself. What drove William to react so fiercely, breaking all protocol and royal decorum? And was this sudden clash over the tiara a mere last-minute coincidence, or the final move in a calculated power play Camilla had been quietly orchestrating for weeks? The soft yellow light of the royal dressing room cast a gentle glow upon the large, crystal-trimmed mirrors where Catherine, Princess of Wales, stood quietly observing her own reflection. She was no longer the timid Kate Middleton who had first crossed the thresholds of Westminster back in 2011. Forged through more than a decade of media storms and rigorous protocols, she had become an emblem of elegance and fortitude, a steadfast pillar for her husband, Prince William, the direct heir to the British throne. As the royal family weathered a relentless tide of internal upheaval and shifting power dynamics, following the passing of Queen Elizabeth II in 2022, Catherine maintained a poise and tranquility that was utterly magnetic. Tonight, one of the most crucial diplomatic receptions of the year was about to unfold, drawing hundreds of ambassadors and heads of state. It was an evening that demanded absolute perfection, where every step, every nod, and the minutest detail of the princess's attire had to be flawless. Catherine's slender fingers lightly brushed the deep blue sapphires, which shimmered as though they held the secrets of a mystical ocean intricately set into the famous Spencer tiara. This was not merely a priceless piece of jewelry. It was an eternal symbol tied to the late Princess Diana, the mother-in-law she so deeply revered, and the ultimate testament to her own unparalleled standing as the current Princess of Wales. Catherine had weighed the choice of this tiara carefully for weeks, intending it as a statement of continuity, a nod to tradition, and a tribute to the family's roots. Resting upon her elegant updo, the tiara radiated an aura, both proud and regal, accentuating her slender shoulders and the commanding presence of a future queen. Yet behind the room's stillness and her immaculate appearance, Catherine's mind was weighed down by a quiet anxiety. Over the past several months, her keen intuition had picked up on unusual undercurrents within the management of the royal treasury. As someone who was exceptionally meticulous and thoroughly versed in palace bureaucracy, Catherine could not help but grow suspicious when the paperwork required to borrow jewelry faced continuous delays or when forms were abruptly altered without any justifiable reason. Prerogatives that had belonged to the household of the Prince and Princess of Wales for years suddenly became muddled, obscured by a web of new overlapping regulations that required tedious approvals from departments that rarely, if ever, interfered with her wardrobe. This systematic ambiguity sparked profound doubts within Catherine. She understood all too well that in a place like Buckingham Palace, where even the smallest brooch carried immense political weight, tightening or clouding the rules for using historic treasures was never a mere coincidence. It was a silent but ruthless psychological war, a calculated effort to curtail her influence and diminish her stature in the eyes of the public and the diplomatic corps. Someone was intentionally creating invisible hurdles to remind her of their supreme authority, turning an administrative routine into a favor to be begged for. Though her heart swelled with unease and resentment, at these petty political machinations, Catherine chose absolute silence. Not a single ripple of emotion showed on her face. Her eyes remained fixed and resolute in the mirror as she smoothly adjusted the folds of her satin gown, steeling herself to face whatever trials the night might bring. The moment the final adjustments were made, the atmosphere in the dressing room suddenly dropped, turning strangely thick and suffocating. Firm, heavy footsteps echoed from the corridor outside, cutting through the silence. The intricately carved oak door groaned slightly and swung open. At the threshold stood a familiar figure, bringing with her an invisible pressure that instantly blanketed the room. It was Camilla, the Queen of the United Kingdom. Since her coronation in 2023, alongside King Charles III, she had systematically consolidated her power within the court, establishing a new order and making no secret of her ambition to hold ultimate control over every ceremony and symbolic asset of the family. Between the two most powerful women of the contemporary monarchy, there had always existed a complex relationship. It was wrapped in flawless courtesy and practiced smiles for the media lenses. But beneath the surface lay a quiet war for influence that had simmered for years. Camilla entered without warning, an uninvited guest whose presence on the eve of such a grand diplomatic reception certainly boded no good. The Queen's sharp eyes swept across the room before locking on to the Spencer Sapphire Tiara, gleaming atop Catherine's head, signaling a storm that was about to break in this private sanctuary. The sudden appearance of Queen Camilla was like a cold gust of wind sweeping into the dressing room, causing the surrounding aides to instantly bow their heads, hold their breath, and step back. Without a single word of introduction, Camilla took slow but powerful steps toward Catherine. Her eyes made no attempt to hide her desire and calculation as they locked onto the deep blue sapphires gleaming atop the princess's head. In a flat tone that nevertheless carried immense pressure, she demanded that Catherine remove and hand over the Spencer tiara immediately. The reason was offered seamlessly. She wished to wear this very treasure for tonight's diplomatic event to complement her own formal gown. To reinforce this absurd demand, Camilla did not fail to cite the recently issued documents modifying the jewelry management procedures, smugly viewing them as a supreme legal tool under the control of the Queen's office. Catherine remained seated on her velvet-upholstered chair, but every muscle in her face subtly tightened. A cold current ran down her spine as she instantly understood the true nature of this request. This was absolutely not a momentary whim regarding fashion or a chance coincidence between two women sharing the same aesthetic taste. The Spencer tiara was not just gold, silver, or precious stones. It was the embodiment of bloodlines of the Wales legacy, and most importantly, it was a symbol bound to her husband's late mother. Camilla's desire to strip it away just before the most critical hour of the reception was a direct strike at her self-respect, an open declaration of war aimed at tearing down her stature and stripping away what little autonomous power Catherine had left within the court. If she yielded even a single step, she would willingly turn herself into a submissive pawn, forfeiting the standing she had painstakingly built over the past 15 years. Noticing the silent yet steadfast resistance from her counterpart, Camilla's patience quickly evaporated. Her face darkened, the lines around her eyes deepening with resentment at an attitude she deemed a challenge to her authority. Stripping away the artificial courtesy of a superior, Camilla stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking to a suffocating degree. She repeated her demand in a low, sharp voice that cut like a knife, emphasizing every word as she ordered Catherine to personally remove the jewelry. This blatant coercion was like a ruthless psychological test, backing the princess into a corner right inside her own private space. Yet instead of panicking or trembling before the Queen's wrath, an eerie calmness washed over Catherine's mind. She looked directly into Camilla's burning, angry eyes through the large mirror, taking a quiet, deep breath to steady her heart rate. Without rushing, Catherine slowly stood up, making full use of her height advantage to establish a commanding counterbalancing stance. She adjusted the hem of her gown, stood tall with the bearing of a future matriarch, and turned to face Camilla directly. With a gaze that was icy, yet utterly resolute, Catherine gave a slight shake of her head, bluntly, refusing the Queen's demand, without showing a single hint of compromise in any of her gestures. Catherine's blunt refusal was like a bucket of cold water poured directly onto Camilla's soaring pride, plunging the vast dressing room into an instantly eerie silence. On opposite sides, neither woman would yield even a single inch. Aides, hairstylists, and wardrobe staff cowered in the dim corners of the room, all with their heads bowed low and eyes glued to the floor, trying to minimize their presence as much as possible. They understood all too well that they had inadvertently become unwilling witnesses to an unprecedented fierce face-off between the two most powerful women of the monarchy, a place where a single careless move could utterly ruin one's career. Catherine's steadfastness only added fuel to the fire of the Queen's rage. To Camilla, the behavior of the Princess of Wales, standing tall and looking her straight in the eye, was nothing short of an open defiance, a direct assault on the supreme authority she had painstakingly established since the day she ascended to the throne as matriarch. Her chest heaved with every rapid breath, her fingers gripping her silk clutch so tightly that her knuckles turned stark white. Across from her, Catherine maintained an astonishing calm, like a marble statue that could not be moved by the storm. Her resolve did not stem from arrogance, but was rooted in a deep awareness of protecting her own honor, that of her family, and of the entire lineage she represented. She knew she was standing on the thin line between submission and autonomy, and any display of weakness at this moment would turn her into a permanent loser. The breaking point of Camilla's endurance finally shattered when she realized her silent, glaring threats had absolutely no effect on her royal daughter-in-law. No longer caring for the strict rules of etiquette or the noble demeanor expected of a Queen, Camilla took a long, aggressive step forward. In a fleeting moment of unhinged fury, she suddenly lunged her hand out, diamond-ringed fingers reaching straight for the top of Catherine's head, fully intending to rip the Spencer Sapphire Tiara away herself. That audacious and deeply insulting gesture caused a few attendants to gasp in sheer horror, while Catherine tilted her head back slightly, her eyes flashing with astonishment mixed with defensiveness at her mother-in-law's abruptness. At the exact second, Camilla's fingers were only inches away from the precious stones. The oak door of the dressing room flew open with immense force. The sharp crack cut through the Queen's brute action, drawing everyone's attention toward the entrance. From the threshold, Prince William strode in with long, decisive, and hurried steps. His face was hardened, his brows furrowed deeply, and his eyes blazed with a fiery anger as he witnessed the entire chaotic scene unfolding inside. The sudden appearance of the heir to the throne felt like a wave of supreme authority, flooding the room, instantly upending the dynamic and forcing all hostility to a dead stop. William's arrival was like an immovable fortress erected in the cramped space, instantly driving back the suffocating atmosphere that had surrounded Catherine. Without taking even a second to assess the situation, the Prince of Wales stepped forward, using his long, decisive strides to move straight between the two women. He turned, placing himself completely in front of his wife, transforming his broad back and steady shoulders into a solid shield, isolating Catherine from Camilla's reaching hands and furious gaze. The action happened in a flash, yet it carried an incredibly powerful message, affirming his absolute protection and the inviolable status of the woman standing behind him. William looked directly at his royal stepmother with a cold, severe gaze, unlike anything seen before. His lips were pressed into a tight, straight line, every muscle in his brow and jaw hardened, betraying a resentment controlled to the absolute maximum. With a sharp yet entirely polite gesture, following proper protocol, he signaled for Camilla to lower her hand and step back. In his heart, William was filled with indignation at his stepmother's boundary-crossing behavior toward his wife.
He understood that the Spencer tiara was not merely a decorative piece for the evening. It was a sacred emblem bound to the title of the Princess of Wales, a legacy his late mother had left behind. Camilla's deliberate use of ambiguous regulations to strip it away right before a major diplomatic event was a direct insult to Diana's memory and a blatant attempt to diminish his family's honor. As a husband and the rightful heir, William would not allow anyone, even the Queen, the right to trample on those values.
Faced with the resolute and powerful shielding of her stepson, Camilla faltered slightly, her fingers hovering in midair, instinctively drawing back. Her face briefly flashed with astonishment, which was quickly replaced by her inherent stubbornness. She tried to draw herself up, attempting to use her title as queen to force William to comply with the new administrative procedures her office had engineered. Her eyes blazed with fury,
Her chest heaving, as if she wanted to overwhelm his opposition with the supreme authority of a superior. Yet every one of Camilla's attempts to impose herself struck a wall of freezing ice. William showed not the slightest hint of wavering or fear. He countered her arguments with an absolute finality, his resolute gaze locked firmly onto his opponent, rendering all of the Queen's procedural excuses ridiculous and worthless against the truth of Catherine's rightful possession. Realizing this direct confrontation could lead to an unwarranted scandal just before the 0 hour, William made a highly astute decision. Instead of letting himself be dragged into a loud and petty argument in a dressing room, something that could feed false rumors in the media, he proactively ended the chapter with a cold yet highly deterrent demeanor. He angled his body slightly, creating a path toward the door, while delivering an implicit statement through his actions that this matter would not end here, but would be thoroughly resolved through official legal channels. This decisive choice not only protected the royal family's dignity, but was also a tactical move backing Camilla into a position where she had to retreat with her diminished pride. Knowing she could not shake the will of the heir or his strict protection of his wife, Camilla understood she had lost the upper hand for the night. She took a deep breath to recover a final shred of guarded poise, turned sharply, and strode toward the door, her long train sweeping across the floor with an angry rustle. The dressing room door closed behind the Queen, restoring peace to the room. Only then did William turn slightly to look at Catherine. The tension on his face softened, replaced instead by an anxious, tender gaze. He lightly touched her hand in reassurance before his mind began to focus entirely on a long-term plan, a solid legal strategy he would set in motion this very night to ensure that incidents like this would never have the chance to happen again. As darkness fell, casting a deep silence over the palace's endless corridors, the lavish atmosphere of the diplomatic reception faded away, making room for a quiet power struggle that shifted into the private study of the Prince of Wales. Amidst a space filled with the scent of aged oak and a faint aroma of tea, William sat brooding before his large desk, the warm yellow lamplight catching his furrowed brow. The resentment from the evening's confrontation had not faded. Instead, it had transformed into a cold, calculated alertness. He understood perfectly well that verbal deterrence and physical shielding in a dressing room were mere stopgap measures. To protect Catherine absolutely from sophisticated administrative maneuvers in the future, he needed a solid legal shield, an official mechanism that no one could overturn. That very night, William summoned the two closest legal advisors from the household of the Prince and Princess of Wales men, who were loyal and deeply versed in every loophole of internal royal law. Upon the leather desktop, old files regarding the asset management regulations and the jewelry inventory tied to the lineage of the Princess of Wales were repeatedly flipped open. Every line, every ambiguous clause that Camilla had used as a pretext to exert pressure was dissected under the prince's sharp gaze. The greatest obstacle lay not in the drafting itself, but in how to navigate this document through the Palace Council's tedious internal approval processes without triggering early intervention from the King's office. William resolutely sat reviewing every word, his long fingers occasionally tapping firmly on the desk whenever he found a key point to tighten control. The exhaustion of a long day seemed to vanish before the willpower of a man determined to protect his family and shoulder the future of the monarchy. After hours of intense, nerve-wracking work, the final draft was completed just as the clock struck the fourth watch of the night. The crux and the fatal blow of this new regulation lay in a clause worded so tightly it defied distortion. Any request to use, borrow, or transfer any piece of jewelry belonging to the Heritage Registry tied to the title of the Princess of Wales, including the Spencer Sapphire Tiara, mandatorily required the concurrent written and signed consent of both the Prince and the Princess of Wales. This meant William had officially erected a supreme filter of authority, completely stripping away any ability for intermediary offices to unilaterally manipulate the assets and turning the autonomy over her jewelry into an inviolable, internal prerogative belonging solely to him and his wife. Standing before the document still smelling of fresh ink, William picked up his gold fountain pen. Without a moment's hesitation, he signed his name with a decisive, powerful stroke under the supreme authority of the Prince of Wales. It was not merely an administrative procedure, but a fierce assertion of the power boundaries he was drawing within the court. As the first rays of the new day crept through the window slits, the new regulation was officially stamped with red ink and dispatched across the palace's core management departments. Precisely at 8 o'clock in the morning, the document took full legal effect, establishing a fortress of protection just before the new royal workday began, ready to confront any wave of resistance from the other side of the battle lines. That morning, a cold and tense atmosphere blanketed the corridor leading to Queen Camilla's private office. As the sunlight of the new day began to illuminate the large glass window frames, an urgent dispatch arrived from the Central Royal Treasury Management Department, carrying the official response to the request to borrow the Wales jewelry collection that the Queen's side had sent the day before. The brief, decisive rejection was printed on high-grade parchment, attached to a copy of the new regulation that had taken effect overnight, bearing the sharp signature of Prince William. That fragile piece of paper was like a fatal blow, instantly stripping away the power of dispensation and control that Camilla had so smugly held for so long. The Queen's wrath exploded right within the private sanctuary of her office. Staring at the document of refusal, her face turned pale with humiliation and fury, her fingers tightening until the parchment crumpled within her palm. Unable to accept that she, the bearer of the realm's highest female matriarchal title, had her authority blatantly restricted by her own stepson, Camilla completely lost her usual composure. She turned, sweeping an antique porcelain vase and the exquisite ornaments off her desk, with immense force, sending them crashing onto the marble floor with a deafening shatter. Her heavy, hurried footsteps echoed through the room, accompanied by the violent slamming of the meeting room door, cutting off all outside scrutiny. The entirety of that thunderous rage crashed down upon her closest aides. They could only stand frozen, terrified, bowing their heads to endure the glaring stares and the suffocating pressure the Queen was unleashing. Yet no matter how fiercely and frantically Camilla reacted, the harsh reality remained unalterable. Every shattered object on the floor only further proved her helplessness against a legal mechanism that had been established with absolute watertight precision. The new regulation signed and issued under the supreme authority of the heir to the throne was a document of absolute validity, protected by the Constitution and top royal advisors. Camilla bitterly realized that all the ambiguous administrative maneuvers she had engineered over the past several months had been completely shattered. She no longer possessed any ability or standing to interfere, even in the slightest, with the treasures belonging to the Wales lineage. It was a total defeat, a clear boundary of power drawn by William that she was forced to abide by in resentful humiliation. While the storm was tearing through the Queen's office, an absolute peace reigned in the room overlooking the eastern garden of Kensington Palace. Catherine sat at the tea table, the warm morning sun gently kissing her slender shoulders. gazing at the Spencer Sapphire Tiara, now carefully stored in its velvet box. A sense of relief and serenity, unlike anything before, crept in and filled the princess's mind. The quiet anxieties, the invisible pressures from the unusual changes of the past weeks had now completely vanished like the morning mist. She knew that her own steadfastness and her husband's decisive legal move had forged a solid shield to protect their honor. From now on, her stature was no longer something that could be weighed, measured, or suppressed by personal ambitions. The quiet war had concluded, and in the stillness of the room, Catherine smiled softly, her heart filled with absolute faith in the guarantee of the days to come. After watching this story, in your opinion, was Prince William's decisive action in immediately drafting the new regulation overnight a necessary protections for his wife? Or did it inadvertently deepen the fractures within the royal family? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.